Mo Egger, ESPN 1530 in Cincinnati. Your defense, I want to ask you about that because it's been exceptional. It's sort of far outperformed the expectations. I know because they're my fantasy team, and I'm killing it. They're averaging like almost 20 points for me, more than my quarterbacks. But they've been very good. They seem to be opportunistic. They seem to have some takeaways. What's been the key to their success?
Depth, especially in the front four. They've been better late in games because they're fresh, and they need safety help. Their linebackers aren't great. I think Ray Malaluga's been a little bit of a disappointment. Obviously now without Leon Hall, and it was exposed on Sunday. They gave up some huge chunk plays against the Ravens. But what they've done so far this season has been they've developed 8 guys who can play on the defensive line, all play at different stages in the game, all put varying degrees of pressure on the quarterback, do a pretty solid job against the run, and they've been fresh. And I think you saw over the last couple of years, despite Mike Zimmer, the defensive coordinator, constructing some good defenses, there were oftentimes breakdowns in the fourth quarter. And they've gotten better as the game has gone on, A, because I think Mike Zimmer does a really good job of adjusting, and B, defensive linemen aren't having to play 50 snaps. They're playing 25 or 30. And they're getting contributions from guys like Jonathan Fanene, who hasn't done anything since he got here in 2005, from Robert Gathers, who really hasn't been good since 2006. They've gotten more play from Domata Peko, who I'm convinced can one day be an All-Pro, a Pro Bowl caliber player. Michael Johnson's come to his own, a guy they drafted in 2008. Carlos Dunlap, I think, will become a star pass rusher in this league. But they haven't had to expose him on the field and leave him on the field forever. They did a really good job in the offseason. They lost Jonathan Joseph to free agency to Houston, and in hindsight, it hurts because you've lost Leon Hall, and you could certainly use Jonathan Joseph back there now. But the one thing this team, which ordinarily doesn't do this well, did is they were able to get guys on the fly during training camp, put them in the system, get them a part of the team, and get them to contribute. Thomas Howard from the Oakland Raiders, they signed after training camp began. He's been a godsend because they've had injury at linebacker. Manny Lawson from San Francisco has helped. Nate Clements had a pick against a Cleveland guy, had a pick against San Francisco. He has been, better than average, if not as good as Jonathan Joseph. They've overcome the lack of talent at safety by having enough guys to, kind of do enough. It's really been a team-oriented defense, and if you think about the other defenses in this league, in this division, you think of Troy Polamalu and Ed Reed and Ray Lewis and James Harrison. The Bengals don't have anybody like that, but what they do have are about 20 to 22 guys who at different stages of the season have all made individual contributions, and it has been the reason why this team is 6-4, and I think even more so than the success Andy Dalton has had in his rookie season.
That's interesting. Mo Egger, ESPN 1530. I want to talk big picture for a split second here and divert from the game this Sunday. You look at the history of the Browns and the Bengals, specifically the way Paul Brown left the Browns and wound up coming down and forming the Bengals, and there was a lot of bitter hatred there on the part of Paul Brown, with Art Modell. And are you surprised to this day that there isn't a better rivalry, or did that sort of die when Modell, left and took the team, with him to Baltimore?
I think it died when the Bengals stopped becoming good. I think back to the 80s. The Bengals and Browns were pretty good most of the time. Sometimes, not always great, but you think back to the 80s, it's Boomer versus Bernie. The Browns were always at least competitive. The Bengals were always at least competitive. And then the Bengals, when Paul Brown died in 1991, frankly, they stopped becoming good. And it's hard to get juiced up about a rivalry where, one of the two teams or both teams aren't all that good.
We know that with Pittsburgh right now. Trust me, Mo. Trust me.
Absolutely. And I think the Steelers have become the game that everybody circles on the calendar every year. As you guys know, because of how well the Steelers traveled, because of the playoff game in 2005. Because of those teams have played in some pretty big games in recent years. But I think if you were to go inside the Bengals offices and you were to talk to Mike Brown and you would talk to, Brown family members, Paul's kids and grandkids who are all working for the Bengals, I think they would tell you deep down inside this is the game that still matters most. And even though it's not Art Modell's team, it's still the Cleveland Browns. They're named the Browns for a reason. And it still matters a whole lot to them. And I think if you ever got to the point where the Bengals and Browns were consistently competitive big picture, I think the rivalry would be sparked again. I am surprised. I'll tell you this: the game's going to be blacked out locally, and they've already announced that. I can't remember a Bengals-Browns game where it's been blacked out and announced more than 2 days before the deadline, especially with one of the two teams having a really legitimate playoff chance.
Now, I will, before I let you go, I'll pin you down like I do every time that we have somebody on from the opposing team. Give me your prediction and let me know what you think, how the whole thing shakes out on Sunday.
Well, I think with A.J. Green, I don't want to say the Bengals win easily because they don't have that kind of capability. I think with A.J. Green, they're going to be okay, and I think they can get you downfield enough, and I think they can do enough things offensively. I think they can put enough pressure on the quarterback defensively to win the game. I really don't think the Bengals are capable of beating many teams by more than 10, 13 points. Even the win at Seattle, which was 22, is an aberration. I think with A.J. Green, they win by 10 to 13. I think without A.J. Green, as I said before, it's really all bets are off. Cedric Benson's not running the football well, averaging about 3 yards a pop in his last 6 games. That's concerning. The weather's not going to be great. It's AFC North football. As the weather conditions get worse, they're going to need more from Cedric. They're not getting it. The interior of that offensive line's a mess. I do think there are some concerns in the secondary without Leon Hall. I think without A.J. Green, I think this is anybody's game, and that sounds weird, being that this is a Bengals team that is, so many good vibes are emanating from Paul Brown Stadium, and Andy Dalton's playing so well. I think A.J. Green himself is worth 10 points, and I think without A.J., I really do think this is a toss-up game, and from a Cincinnati standpoint, you obviously hope that he plays. If not, puts a lot of pressure on the running game, and recently they really haven't been up to the task.
Okay, so give me your numbers. What do you got?
Let's go. If AJ plays, I'll say I'll go 27-14 orange and black, and if AJ Green doesn't go, I'll still pick him, but it's shaky. I'll go. I'll go. What did I say? 27-14.
Yeah.
I'll say 17-14 orange and black.
Yeah, that's a lot closer. Mo Egger, ESPN 1530 in Cincinnati. I know you blog a lot about the NFL games. Where can people get out to read your blog?
ESPN1530.com. Search word Mo, which is spelled M-O.
Fantastic, Mo. We appreciate it, and we'll be checking in with you again probably later this year.
Anytime. Looking forward to it.
Thanks. Mo Egger, ESPN 1530 in Cincinnati.